Right now, someone weaker than you is winning. They're closing deals you should have closed, taking positions you deserved, leading rooms you should command. Why? Because they understand something you don't. Confidence isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And they decided long before you even entered the game. While you wait for the right moment, they create it. While you prepare for perfection, they act with precision. While you hesitate because you're not ready, they move because they're certain. And certainty, real certainty, doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing you can handle anything. Machiavelli saw this in the courts of Renaissance Italy. The weak princes spent their time being liked. The strong ones spent their time being obeyed. The difference wasn't talent, bloodline, or even intelligence. It was the willingness to act as if power already belonged to them. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. The world doesn't give you confidence. You take it. This isn't motivation. This is reconstruction. By the end of this, you won't just feel different. You'll be different. Because dangerous confidence isn't built on hope. It's forged in fire. And that fire starts now. You hesitate because you were trained to. Trained to ask permission. Trained to seek approval. Trained to wait for someone else to tell you when you're ready. But Machiavelli knew something the world forgot. Permission is for servants. Power takes what it wants. Every time you hesitate, you send a signal. Not just to others, but to yourself. You say, I'm not sure I deserve this. You say, maybe I should wait. You say, what if I'm wrong? And the moment those words enter your mind, you've already lost. Because while you're questioning yourself, someone else is claiming what you wanted. The voice in your head that whispers, doubt. That's not wisdom. That's programming. Society programmed you to question yourself so others could control you. Your parents programmed you to seek approval so you'd stay safe. Your teachers programmed you to wait your turn so you wouldn't disrupt the system. But the system wasn't designed for your success. It was designed for your compliance. Dangerous confidence begins when you stop asking and start taking. Not stealing, not forcing. Taking what's already yours by right of action. When you walk into a room, you don't scan for permission. You assess for opportunity. When you speak, you don't wait for agreement. You state your position and let others catch up. Machiavelli understood this in the political arena. The rulers who asked for power never received it. The ones who acted as if they already possessed it found others willing to follow. Because people don't follow uncertainty. They follow conviction. And conviction doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It creates the moment by moving first. Your transformation starts with one simple rule. If it requires permission, it's probably not worth having. Real power, real success, real confidence. These aren't given. They're claimed. And the claiming starts the moment you stop asking, may I, and start declaring, I will. Dangerous confidence isn't loud. It's gravitational. You don't enter a room demanding attention. You enter, and attention finds you. Not because you're the most attractive, or the smartest, or the richest. Because you move like someone who expects the world to organize itself around your energy. Watch how the powerless move. They rush. They fidget. They seek eye contact for validation. They speak quickly to fill silence. They laugh nervously when no one else is laughing. They constantly adjust their position based on other people's reactions. This is the body language of submission. Now watch how power moves, slowly, deliberately, without apology. The powerful don't seek permission with their posture. They grant it with their presence. When they walk, they own the space between where they were and where they're going. When they stand, They claim the ground beneath them. When they sit, they settle as if the chair was designed for their comfort alone. Machiavelli observed this in the royal courts. The actual rulers weren't always the ones wearing crowns. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room was the advisor who spoke last, moved least, and commanded attention through stillness rather than spectacle. Because true power doesn't perform, it simply exists. Your body speaks before your mouth opens. So what is it saying? Are you communicating confidence or seeking permission? Are you claiming space or apologizing for taking it? Are you moving like a predator or prey? Here's how you change that. You slow everything down. Your walk becomes purposeful, not rushed. Your gestures become deliberate, not anxious. Your eye contact becomes steady, not searching. You don't fill silence. You create it. You don't respond immediately. You pause, consider, then speak with finality. This isn't arrogance. Arrogance seeks attention. Confidence assumes it. Arrogance needs validation. Confidence provides it. When you master this distinction, you stop being someone who hopes to be noticed and become someone who can't be ignored. Words are weapons, and most people fire blanks. They speak in questions when they should make statements. They use weakening phrases that destroy their authority before they finish speaking. I think maybe we should. I'm not sure, but this might be wrong, however. These aren't sentences. They're surrender documents. Dangerous confidence speaks in declarations, not opinions, declarations, not suggestions, commands, not requests, requirements. When you speak, people should feel the weight of certainty behind your words. They should understand that you're not opening a debate. You're closing one. Machiavelli knew that power wasn't in speaking the most words, but in speaking the right words with absolute conviction. A single sentence delivered with authority carries more weight than a 10-minute explanation filled with doubt. Because people don't analyze what you say, they respond to how you say it. The dangerously confident don't seek agreement. They state their position and let others decide whether to align with it. They don't ask, "What do you think?" They say, "This is what we're doing." They don't wonder aloud. They declare with precision, "Your voice is your throne." How you use it determines whether people see you as a ruler or a subject. Lower your tone. Slow your pace. Remove filler words completely. Never end statements with rising intonation unless you are asking a direct question. Speak as if your words carry the force of law. And here's the secret most will never learn. The power isn't in the words themselves. It's in the silence that follows. When you make a statement with complete certainty, then stop talking, you create a vacuum. Others rush to fill that vacuum with agreement, questions, or challenges. But by then, you've already established the frame. You spoke with authority. They're responding to it. This is how you control conversations without controlling people. You don't force them to agree. You speak with such conviction that disagreement feels like arguing with gravity. Possible, but pointless. The most dangerous aspect of confidence isn't what others see, it's what you believe about yourself when no one's watching. Because true confidence isn't performance, it's identity. And identity operates from the inside out. Most people's confidence depends on external validation. They feel good when praised, terrible when criticized, uncertain when ignored. This isn't confidence. This is emotional dependency disguised as self-assurance. Real confidence doesn't fluctuate based on other people's reactions because it doesn't require other people's permission. Machiavelli understood that the truly powerful were psychologically unreachable. Not because they didn't feel emotion, but because they didn't let emotion dictate their actions. When insulted, they calculated. When praised, they analyzed. When ignored, they observed. Their emotional center remained untouchable because they understood a fundamental truth. What others think of you is their business. What you do with that information is yours. This is where dangerous confidence separates from regular confidence. Regular confidence says, "I believe in myself." Dangerous confidence says, "I am myself, regardless of what anyone believes." Regular confidence seeks to prove its worth. Dangerous confidence operates as if worth has already been established. You build this internal fortress through psychological sovereignty. You stop needing others to validate your decisions. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't affect your outcomes. You stop defending your choices to those who weren't invited to make them. You become the final authority on your own existence. When someone criticizes you, you don't react emotionally. You extract intelligence. What does their criticism reveal about them? What insecurity are they projecting? What advantage might you gain from understanding their perspective? You turn every attack into reconnaissance. When someone praises you, you don't become addicted to their approval. You assess their motivation. Why are they praising you now? What do they want? How can you use their positive sentiment strategically? You appreciate the praise, but you don't depend on it. This psychological independence creates something terrifying in others: the realization that they can't control you through emotional manipulation. They can't hurt you with rejection because you don't need their acceptance. They can't tempt you with praise because you don't require their validation. You become untouchable. And untouchable people are dangerous people. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes a superpower, but not passive silence, strategic silence. The kind that makes people uncomfortable enough to reveal their true intentions. The kind that creates space for others to fill with their insecurities. The kind that communicates more power than any speech ever could. Machiavelli knew that talking too much was a sign of weakness. It showed need, the need to be understood, to be liked, to fill uncomfortable space. But the truly confident understand that silence isn't empty space. It's loaded space. Space filled with potential energy, waiting to be directed. When you master strategic silence, you flip the power dynamic in every interaction. Instead of feeling compelled to speak, you wait. Instead of filling awkward pauses, you create them. Instead of rushing to respond, you let others rush to fill the void you've created. This serves multiple purposes. First, it forces others to reveal more than they intended. People are uncomfortable with silence, so they talk to fill it. The more they talk, the more they expose their motivations, fears, and weaknesses. You gather intelligence while appearing to do nothing. Second, it creates the impression of depth. When you don't immediately react, people assume you're processing complex thoughts. They begin to attribute more intelligence and strategy to your silence than might actually exist. Your mystique grows simply because you refuse to be easily read. Third, it positions you as the scarce resource in the conversation. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. People begin to wait for your input instead of competing with it. You become the person whose opinion matters most. Not because you demanded it, but because you made it rare. Here's how you weaponize silence. When someone asks you a question, pause before answering. Not because you don't know the answer, but because you want them to feel the weight of asking. When someone makes a statement, don't immediately agree or disagree. Let them sit with their words while you consider your response. When someone tries to provoke you, remain completely still. Don't give them the reaction they're seeking. Let them escalate against your silence until they expose their own instability. When someone finishes talking, don't rush to respond. Count to 3. Let them wonder if you're done listening or just getting started. This isn't about being rude or dismissive. It's about controlling the tempo of interaction. You become the metronome that others sink to, rather than dancing to their rhythm. You set the pace because you refuse to be rushed. Dangerous confidence doesn't come from avoiding failure. It comes from making failure irrelevant. Most people hesitate because they're terrified of being wrong. The dangerously confident operate from a different premise. Being wrong is temporary. Being paralyzed is permanent. Machiavelli observed that the princes who survived weren't the ones who never made mistakes. They were the ones who made decisions quickly and adjusted rapidly. They understood that in a world of constant change, the biggest risk was taking no risk at all. While others debated perfect solutions, they implemented good solutions and improved them through action. This is where dangerous confidence separates from reckless confidence. Reckless confidence doesn't calculate risk, it ignores it. Dangerous confidence calculates risk and moves anyway, because it understands something crucial. The cost of inaction is usually higher than the cost of imperfect action. You develop this mentality by reframing failure. Failure isn't a verdict on your worth. It's data about what doesn't work. Every failure brings you closer to what does work, but only if you're moving fast enough to collect that data. The person who fails quickly learns quickly. The person who avoids failure avoids learning. The dangerously confident make decisions based on insufficient information because they know something others don't. More information rarely leads to better decisions. It leads to analysis paralysis. At some point, you have to act based on what you know. Trust your ability to adapt and course correct as new information emerges. This creates a competitive advantage that most people never recognize. While they're still researching, you're already implementing. While they're still planning, you're already adjusting based on real-world feedback. While they're still afraid of making the wrong choice, you've already made 3 choices and learned from each one. Your confidence grows not from avoiding mistakes, but from proving to yourself that you can handle whatever mistakes bring. You build evidence that you're adaptive, resilient, and capable of turning problems into advantages. This evidence becomes the foundation of unshakable self-assurance. Respect isn't given, it's commanded. And it's not commanded through demands or displays of force. It's commanded through consistent demonstration of value, standards, and consequences. The dangerously confident don't ask for respect because they've structured their lives in ways that make respect inevitable. This starts with standards. Not standards for others, standards for yourself. How you dress, how you speak, how you treat your commitments, how you handle adversity. Every action either builds or erodes the foundation of respect. The dangerously confident understand that respect is architecture, not accident. Machiavelli knew that fear and love were both useful, but fear was more reliable. Not fear of violence or retaliation, but fear of irrelevance. When people understand that access to you is conditional, that your time and attention are earned rather than assumed, they begin to value what you provide. You create this dynamic by becoming selectively available. Not playing hard to get. Being genuinely selective about where you invest your energy. You respond to people who add value to your life and maintain professional distance from those who don't. You're not cruel, but you're not charitable with your most precious resources, time and attention. The dangerously confident also understand the power of quiet consequences. They don't threaten or punish dramatically. They simply remove access. When someone consistently disrespects their time, they become less available to that person. When someone fails to meet agreed standards, they're excluded from future opportunities. No announcements, no drama, just natural consequences for choices made. This teaches everyone around you a simple lesson. Your presence is a privilege, not a right. Your attention is a resource, not an entitlement. Your cooperation is valuable, not automatic. People begin to adjust their behavior not because you demanded it, but because they've learned the cost of not meeting your standards. Respect flows toward people who respect themselves enough to maintain boundaries, standards, and consequences. It flows away from people who are endlessly accommodating, constantly available, and chronically willing to accept less than they deserve. Dangerous confidence isn't a destination. It's an evolution. It's the ongoing process of becoming someone who doesn't need the world's permission to exist as they choose to exist. It's the development of internal authority that no external force can vote on, veto, or revoke. This evolution happens in stages. First, you stop seeking permission for your decisions. You realize that most of the approval you've been seeking was never necessary for your success. You begin making choices based on your assessment of what serves your goals, not on what others might think of those choices. Second, you stop explaining yourself to people who aren't affected by your decisions. You realize that explanation is often just permission-seeking in disguise. You begin operating with the understanding that people who matter will understand, and people who don't understand don't matter. Third, you stop being surprised by resistance, criticism, or rejection. You expect it as a natural response to growth and change. You stop taking it personally and start using it strategically. Every form of resistance becomes information about the environment you're operating in. Fourth, you develop the ability to remain unmoved by both praise and criticism. Your self-assessment becomes more accurate and reliable than others' assessments. You appreciate positive feedback but don't depend on it. You consider negative feedback but don't absorb it emotionally. Finally, you reach the stage where your confidence becomes independent of outcomes. You're confident not because you always win, but because you know you can handle whatever happens. You're dangerous not because you never lose, but because loss doesn't define or diminish you. This is the ultimate form of confidence, the kind that doesn't require constant victory to maintain itself, the kind that grows stronger through challenges rather than weaker, the kind that makes you genuinely unpredictable because you're not operating from fear of any particular outcome. Machiavelli would recognize this evolution. It's the development of a ruler's mentality in a citizen's body. It's the creation of internal sovereignty that no external authority can revoke. It's becoming dangerous, not through aggression, but through complete psychological independence. You don't need the world to change for you to be confident. You need to become the kind of person who shapes the world through the force of their certainty. You need to develop such clear internal authority that external validation becomes irrelevant noise. This is dangerous confidence, the kind that doesn't depend on circumstances, doesn't require permission, and doesn't need explanation. The kind that makes you untouchable not because you're perfect, but because you're unshakable. The kind that creates legends not through loudness, but through presence that lingers long after you've left the room. The world will test this confidence. It will question your authority, challenge your decisions, and attempt to make you doubt yourself. But once you've built true, dangerous confidence, these tests become strengthening exercises rather than threatening events. They prove to you, over and over, that you cannot be moved by external forces because you've become immovable from within. This is your evolution, from permission seeker to decision maker, from approval dependent to self-determined, from reactive to proactive, from fearful to formidable. Not through changing who you are, but through removing everything that was never you in the first place. Dangerous confidence is your natural state. Everything else is conditioning that can be undone.